Hey guys, I'm here to talk about Devil May Cry 4. Man, I remember when this game came out, it was a huge deal. It was like in the next generation of Devil May Cry games. What's really funny about this game is that despite it being technically, superior to, Devil May Cry 3, it just isn't quite as good. I think everyone kind of agrees with that. This game is okay and it's good, but it's not as good as Devil May Cry 3. And maybe that have to do with the introduction of Nero. Now, Nero's a fine character, I think, but he just is not the same as Dante. He's kind of like this new look where he's kind of like a younger kid and he's trying to, a bit of a brat, kind of whiny. And he does not have any of Dante's mannerisms. In fact, Dante kind of schools him in the first battle. And there's this whole thing where he has his devil arm. So this is the new main mechanic that they introduced in this game, along with Nero's moveset, which is completely exclusive to him. Which is that using his devil arm, he can do things like grab enemies. And so besides your combos and jump attacks, you can do things like it'll depend on the enemy. You can throw them, you can pull them to you, other enemies who'll like throw them around in a circle and hit other enemies. And so it actually depends on the enemy what you do. Also, if you're locked on and use the devil hand, it will basically either pull you towards the enemy or pull the enemy towards you, or it'll have a different kind of effect. The Red Queen and Blue Rose are Nero's gun and sword, and so they are different from Dante in the fact, you could charge up Dante's guns in the previous games via upgrades and they would release, this kind of blast, but with the Blue Rose, I think it's a lot stronger. The Red Queen's special gimmick is that you can basically charge it up and using the right trigger. And so this would depend on things like you get certain upgrades with that. When you swing, if you swing as soon as you make contact with the enemy and you hit the trigger, it'll automatically charge one of the gauges. And so you could do a lot of really cool nifty things like that. And of course, I think a lot of people didn't like this because you started playing the game as Nero. You eventually got Dante, but it was kind of cheap in the sense that when you switch over to Dante, you literally spend the second half of the game literally backtracking and going backwards through all the levels like it was Mario Kart or something. And it's kind of like, that's kind of cheap, but you kind of understand why they had to do that. I guess they just didn't have the time to make Dante's own exclusive levels. But in any case, that's just how the game is. And so you have to play half the game as Nero, and then suddenly you get Dante, and you get all his movesets all at once. You do unlock a few special weapons for Dante. Actually, it's funny how they actually did this, because when you play as Nero, you go through 4 or 5 main areas, and you'll fight the boss, and you'll defeat them, and they'll retreat through this portal back to the demon world. And when you play as Dante going backwards, you defeat that boss, and every time you defeat a boss, you get a different weapon. So there's actually a lot of content packed in here. I think the coolest weapon that I've seen in this game is Pandora's Box, which Dante uses. And that's really cool because it can transform into a variety of basically any weapons. And when you use its super powerful Devil Trigger mode, you basically get a mech, which is just absolutely ridiculous. How is the music in this game? It's I would say pretty similar to Devil May Cry 3, not quite as good. The main theme is fairly good. Nero's theme is pretty good. There are definitely some slow parts in the campaign, like when you have to do like the chess match or the dice match rather. It's kind of tedious and boring. Some of the best enemies to fight, though, in this game, I mean, the sandbag creatures you start off with are fine, but once you start fighting the knights in the castle, that's when things really get interesting, because there's whole custom animations for when you fight them. things like when you use the devil hand on them, you take their spear and stab them like 5 times with it and use their own thing against them. Really, really, like, lots of cool, nifty things like that. But yeah, the big twist in this game is they introduced some new characters, and some of them are actually undercover as other characters. You now have more of a vision of what the human world looks like, where they worship this demon lord as their savior, which is Sparta, which is, Dante's father. But it's this weird thing where the religion is messed up and controlled, and of course you have to go and end up fighting those people. And you also have this guy called Agnes, who is like a researcher of the church, and he is this kind of crazy character who eventually, ends up using the hubris of science to transform himself and things like this. Again, it's strange. This game feels very fluid, but it really lacks, I think, maybe the story and the impact of Devil May Cry 3. Also, maybe the fact that you have to use a completely different moveset from when you start the game to when you play it. I don't know, it might have made more sense to play as Dante for the first half and then Nero, but I understand why they did it, because they wanted you to kind of like get used to the new, moveset. They wanted you to at least try it out and appraise it, and things like that. But I can see how it would be different if they actually let you play as Dante for like the first half and then got used to Nero later on. Because again, with Dante, there's a lot more variety, and it kind of feels weird to start the game from the half point as Dante and then, go back to Nero. Again, I actually really like the aesthetic and the vibe of this opening area, of the first opening levels. It feels like a very comfy town, a little village. You kind of get an idea for the culture of the place, and you're kind of getting accustomed to these new mechanics and this new style of Devil May Cry, how it looks in HD now, how everything's much more fluid. Nero himself, it's actually, I don't know, very comforting. I really enjoyed it. It's a real vibe, I guess. The bosses in this game are also very diverse, very good, very interesting. They're a lot of fun to fight against, especially the humanoid knights, and also the first boss, Belial, is actually kind of easy, I guess, but I enjoy his design and the banter between him and the other characters. The ending to this game is pretty climactic, pretty cool. It feels like it kind of escalates out of nowhere, and they kind of just had to wrap it up, and again, you kind of get sidelined to use Nero again, which again is fine. But again, it's like a new direction for Devil May Cry. And while I feel like they didn't do anything necessarily wrong, they didn't really hit it out of the park. And that isn't going to happen until Devil May Cry 5, which, frankly, while this game is okay, 5 blows this out of the water. Just ridiculously good. Again, 4 is the odd one out. It's kind of like, I think the odd numbered Devil May Cries are just, well, odd, like 2 and 4. But it had its place, and it's not, terrible. And for anyone who wants to play the series, this is definitely up there as one of the, main contenders. You might actually I feel this is the kind of game where some longtime fans might say, oh yeah, there's like 1 or 2 things in this game I actually really like that they didn't bring back or something like that. But in any case, we'll see more of Nero in 5, and his attitude is a lot more fun as well. But for now, that's Devil May Cry 4. I personally really like it, and it's definitely a contender for, a good game. That being said, I'll see you guys later. Bye.